The other day I rewatched this little underrated gem you might not have heard of called The Thing, and it's actually a really good fucking movie. Not the 2011 The Thing, mind you, with Obi-Wan's mate and his real-life wife, but the original The Thing, which is also technically not the original Thing because of this old one where 90% of the runtime is a bloke in a suit being set on fire repeatedly or something.
How much more of this crap is there?
Yeah, not that one. I'm talking about John Carpenter's The Thing, and I hope you're sitting down for this hot take. I loved it. Everyone fucking loves this movie. Even the horror wimps like me love this movie. And why is that? Why does everyone just fucking love this movie so much? Is it the practical effects? Is it Keith David? Yes, obviously, but there's also so much more to it.
Ramirez!
You've got that simplistic yet terrifying score. You've got that bit where a dog's head peels back like a banana, and then later on that guy's stomach does a big chomp on that guy's arm. Look, there's so much to love about this thing. I'm not gonna break any new ground on this, right? The Thing came out 15 years before I was born. We're just unabashedly praising something today, that's what's happening. I don't know if anyone's heard this, but The Thing's practical effects are actually pretty good. Sorry to be so controversial. Obviously they're creative and they look disgusting and gross and stuff, but the function they serve towards the themes of the story is one of my favorite aspects of their inclusion here. If this film is supposed to be about the loss of identity and paranoia eroding away at our humanity, then what better way is there to show that than to take each character one by one and present them in this grotesque devolution of the human form? The Thing doesn't reveal its true form. I don't know, maybe it's this blue thing from the original book or whatever, right? That seems silly. But for the purposes of this adaptation, I'd like to think that John Carpenter continued to show us the Thing in its transformational stages to further enhance the ideas in the script. Gooey bodies, halfway formed, insidious replications of humanity shown to us through the warping of familiar faces into complete and utter fucking monstrosities. Until yes, they're left complete, technically, but they're fucking empty, obviously. In the later acts of the film, it continuously makes the case that the humans aren't so different from the Thing itself. Shells of people just preying on the weak in a desperate bid to survive, which is why my favorite scene of the Thing is actually this guy getting fucking blasted by Big Russ. He is a human being, technically, yes, Kurt Russell did kill a human being. But come on, look what he was doing. He's assimilating, he's hiding his true nature within a group of people, preparing to strike from within. I'm fucking glad Kurt Russell shot him. Obviously, some of these little creepy shots where the Thing is just lurking in a corner, or it's a little dog, or it's this kind of weird humanoid, slimy, greasy little fucking thing, they're some of the smaller scenes. But even during the bigger sequences, the gut teeth, the spider head shit, right? Carpenter blocks and shoots these scenes with a distant approach. You've seen Spider-Man 2 with that little horror sequence of Doc Ock's arms going fucking crazy and killing a bunch of surgeons. You've seen Spider-Man 1 when the camera whips around when he gets punched in the face. He could have gone full Raimi and whipped the camera all around the unfolding chaos, but instead Carpenter is steady and unflinching. There are close-ups, obviously, to appreciate the excellent effects work, but they also allow the film to confront the creature head-on. These shots aren't sensationalizing the creature. Instead, it's cold, it's objective, it presents this idea that this is the inevitable outcome. And that's really fucking awesome. Another awesome thing about the Thing is its restraint and its commitment to simplicity through character as well. Big John does away with any complexity in the crew, which sounds like it should be an insult, but in rejecting needless explanation, you choose to build the film solely around their behavior and what characters do rather than what they say or feel. This is an approach that aligns with that idea that action equals character, which is a phrase that I'm fairly new to, so forgive my mind for being completely blown over what seemingly is a fairly normal concept, but I think it's really awesome and it's really effective in this film. We don't learn about these men through backstory, dialogue, or emotional confession. We learn who they are through their reactions under pressure. Every single gesture, every single decision, every single survival instinct from these characters becomes the only form of characterization we're given. Take Childs, for example, right? Big Keith is pragmatic, he's skeptical, not because the film tells us so, but because he's consistently challenging authority and refuses to act without proof. Pretty much every single time that MacReady makes a call, you can kind of see him in the distance, kind of scowling or giving a quizzical look about something. It's really, really great. And speaking of MacReady, right? Big Russ reveals his character through decisive and often reckless action, embodying leadership as a matter of necessity rather than morality.
Mac wants the flamethrower.
Mac wants the what?
That's what he said.
No one stands out as a true hero here, especially not MacReady. So it's fascinating that he's the closest thing to a protagonist that this film has. I mean, he's kind of a bastard, if anything, pretty much solely defined by his capability and then his cutthroat efficiency. He's a character we understand immediately from the very first scene, and I know people have said this to death about how this whole scene is a metaphor for how the entire movie goes and stuff, but it's also very, very true, so I'm saying it as well. I did warn you I wasn't bringing anything new to this. He's very much a flip the chessboard over rather than lose the game kind of guy. It's pretty much the only thing we learn about him. And I do think having this level of distance is key because who these crew members are on the outside of this scenario doesn't matter. The underlying fear of this film is that loss of personhood, and I think that should extend to what people are capable of, irrespective of whether they've been the Thingified or not. No one knows what they do in a crisis until the crisis itself arrives, and that nature of uncertainty is chilling, and it's great for these characters. By keeping emotional distance from these characters and holding us at arm's length, John Carpenter ensures that their individual personalities matter far less than their human instincts. The film strips them back to their most basic impulses, fight or flight, trust or suspicion, right? But the absence of personal detail creates a narrative tension. If we don't know who these people actually are, we can't ever really be certain that they've been taken over until obviously one of them maybe turns into a spider head or some fucking thing. This choice is so goddamn effective, right? Because it puts the audience perspective into active mistrust. We become complicit in the film's paranoia, watching each character for subtle deviations in their behavior, even though we have no baseline for what normal even looks like to them. I think all this paranoia is also beautifully underscored by the film's setting as well. The production design goes hard on this movie, so hard, man, and it's nuts the amount of thematic mileage they managed to get out of the Antarctic Open and pretty much a few bog-standard simple sets. In the Antarctic Open, you can actively feel the characters not only fighting for their lives, but also against the brutal weather conditions. Weather conditions so brutal, by the way, that Keith David had to come up with this banger.
The weather's so bad outside you can't believe your eyes.
This film turns nature into a hostile force, playing on this idea that nature as a concept is going to get them one way or another. Paranoia starts to set in and true natures of characters are revealed, and it's all punctuated perfectly by this thematic relationship to the setting. And it doesn't just extend to the Antarctic either. The base itself feels flimsy and feeble, partly because it was put together on a shoestring budget, obviously, but within the confines of the film itself, it creates this maze-like effect, blurring the geography and blending corridors and rooms into one big, hard-to-distinguish mess. I mean, for a movie where you're meant to question what's around every corner and where people are at all times and whose silhouette this is and why this dog is walking so slowly with a purposeful look in its eye, you couldn't really have picked two better settings to enhance the paranoia surrounding all this. There's so much fun to be had examining their contrast as well. The cold white landscape communicates this sterile, unfeeling brutality, and it's juxtaposed so expertly by these warm tones inside. I mean, Jesus, this film's lighting is genuinely gorgeous, right? Practical light sources, torches, flares, lamps, they all create these striking shadows, making the surrounding environments feel uncertain and a little bit scary. It actively gets us to question what could be hiding in the corner of rooms, and by the end of the movie, I'm feeling just as paranoid as Kurt Russell is. There's a reason people still talk about the vibes of The Thing, and it's because of these two settings. As people start getting more suspicious and jumpy and stuff, you can literally feel the film's presentation marking the collapse of established order. It's so well done. And not to get all like, ooh, look at me or whatever, but there's also a symbolic nature to this imagery. This might be the world's biggest reach since Mr. Fantastic slid his whole fucking creepy flat hand under that door that one time in 2005. But white vistas have always emphasized purity in movies, right? Since the dawn of time, but to me, this gives off more of a sense of emptiness. The setting itself feels like a place devoid of character or identity, which is a nice metaphor for what's going on to the protagonists of the film. Their traits are being mimicked, even being themselves is no longer enough. I don't know, the setting just kind of feels like this feeling of things reverting back to their default setting, right? Just pure emptiness, nothing, blank canvas. Something that I really like as well is when the American team just go and check out the Norwegian base and try and figure out what was going on and why that guy was shooting at the dog and all that stuff. And it just serves as this enormous thematic warning, this foreshadowing of what is going to happen to the Americans. Both bases are kind of built pretty similar, and you can see this if you watch the 2011 prequel thing, which is kind of a remake and, you know, pretty admirable in its own parts, but definitely not as good of a movie. But it kind of communicates this idea that no matter what people occupy this space, the thing's nature is inevitable, right? We saw that guy on the fucking computer screen when it was like, this is gonna happen, and then he went mad and started shooting at people. And this all ties back to the landscape, because by the end of the film, the base is destroyed exactly the same way the Norwegians' base is. Nothing is resolved, and the world just remains as indifferent as it is before. There's a cynical return to isolation here, this idea that nothing mattered. And like, yeah, cool. I feel miserable. What an all-timer ending, though. An ending so good that I'm not really going to talk about it, because what the fuck could I say that hasn't been said a million times, right? I fucking love the uncertainty of it, right? There's no answers, there's no resolution, it's just constant paranoia, unrelenting paranoia. It's meant to be a metaphor for humanity itself, right? You're not supposed to solve this question. It represents the idea that human cooperation is fragile. Even when facing extinction, humans struggle to trust one another, and here comes this thing, this perfect living organism that survives by imitating and consuming others. It's so well thought out, it becomes the perfect metaphor for how fear and suspicion can destroy a group from within. Human beings might die. Human beings might become extinct from this movie. But I guess that's kind of just inevitable, right? Just quickly, I love the score for this movie, right? The heartbeat-esque motif is excellent, but what's even more excellent is the restraint that they use it with. It's not a constant thing, it's kind of only really relied on through various scenes, but the thing I love about it the most is that it's really unconventional. It also has this inhumane rhythm to it, lending credence to this idea of a corrupted, infected humanity society integrating itself within these people. The film itself doesn't really have a traditional score, but that's what makes it really, really awesome, right? And choosing to rely on atmospheric mood pieces, if anything at all, is kind of not really a new idea when it comes to horror, but it is damn fucking effective, right? Because it plays on audiences' preconceived notions of what to expect from films. The fact that this is so quiet renders every single sound you hear suspicious, culminating in a paranoid state of mind where you're stuck understanding that something bad is coming, but you've kind of really got no conventional guidelines to lead you to it. You're left to embrace the uncertainty of the situation, and that is so cool. Anyway, thank you for indulging me on my rant. Feel free to subscribe, feel free to watch that video I made about Dunkirk a couple of months ago or whatever. Have a good day, have a good Christmas!